Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Geeking Out podcast. I am the Athletic Geek, and joining me this week is one of the many awesome people I met at the Metropolis Superman celebration, connected over comic books and AEW wrestling and so many other things. My guest this week is writer Todd Black. Todd, thank you so much for doing this.
No problem, Geek. And since you are the Geek, I will be the Todd.
The Todd.
The,
The
all
Todd.
capital letters.
The Todd.
The Todd.
Is it like it's like The Rock, right?
No. That's The Rock. I am the Todd. See,
Okay.
totally different. Totally different.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. That's fresh.
Thank you.
So, you know, when I met you at your table, you had a bunch of different comic books that you had written for sale.
Yes. Yes.
My first question would be, what got you interested in just comic books and that sort of fantasy? What made you a fan of that to make you eventually down the road want to write one?
Well, I grew up on comic book TV shows. So, like, I grew up in the golden era of, insert superhero name, the animated series, Batman, animated series,
Yes.
Superman, X-Men, Spider-Man, all of them. I grew up on them, and it was awesome. Getting a comic book actually didn't happen until I was 18 years old because I went to college, and it was a junior college near my hometown, and there was a Marvel event going on called Dark Reign, and I was like, this actually sounds kind of cool. And so I was like, is there actually a comic book store near me? And there was. It was there the whole time. I'm just like, oh, come on. So I got reading into that, and it was awesome. That was around the time of Battle for the Cowl and Final Crisis and all that.
Okay.
So yeah, so I got in at actually a perfect time for both DC and Marvel, more or less. And so I just started reading them, and then I have been a writer all my life. Like, my thing was I always would watch like a TV show or a movie, and then say, okay, what's my twist on the tale? How do I insert myself into the story and all that? And I went to college for video game writing
Okay.
originally, and then I went to my first Comic Con in C2E2 2011, I think, and it was just like mind blowing. I
Oh,
was like, this is so awesome. I'd never been to an event like this before in my life. And I was just like, this is so incredible. And so I actually went to a panel. It's called Making Comics the Marvel Way. And on that panel was Matt Fraction, who's, of course, legendary comic
love
writer.
Matt Fraction. Love his
He's
Hawkeye
great.
stuff.
Great. I was there. I met him when he was doing Iron Man, Invincible Iron Man.
Okay.
Great run. But so I met him, and I went, how, for a guy who's thinking about getting into comics, writing wise, like, how would I do? And he goes, find an artist to make comics. And I'm like, okay. So fast forward 2 years, and I found out that you actually like need money to pay an artist. Who knew? So eventually, though, I made my first comic, which was Guardians, which I'm pretty sure you read.
I read issue 0 through 3.
Yes, he did.
Yes.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get
will.
to Guardians.
We will. So so that was my first series, and I wrote that for 20 issues. Then I really wanted to start expanding because I could just tell that I needed more. Some people are fine with sticking to one genre. I wanted to do all the genres. I had so many ideas, and so I went into this contest for Oni Press, actually, and they were asking for mini series or graphic novel stories, but it couldn't be superheroes. So I made I pitched a few things. They both got rejected. So I just did it myself and went on Kickstarter, and I made a mini series called Home. Then I did a graphic novel in 10,000 Miles. That's when I started also writing novels via Sherlock Holmes, the Greatest Detective. Then I started. Eventually, I did a science comic called Seekers of Science, and then Tokyo Blade Detectives. I've got a couple things in the works right now, and then there was a comic about a certain wrestler we'll talk about later.
Okay.
So
yes.
it's just been like one comic after another, and I still got other projects in the works right now, but once I got started, I didn't want to stop because I love to write. This is what I love to do.
Okay. Well, I was gonna answer my next question: is what made you want to get into writing? But you kind of mentioned you always earlier in your life you would kind of start putting your own spin on the different,
Yeah.
the TV shows and everything.
Yeah.
We're
I love stories. It's just a sad thing in my life, and sad, but like I'll watch something for the story, and then I'll find myself judging it because of the story, not just because of something else I'm seeing. Like, I mean, this character was like totally improper. Like, what is the real motivation here? Like, I've become so snobbish in my life recently. Like, oh, that character would never do that. What's wrong with you?
Right.
Uh, but that's just how it works sometimes. But I love stories and I want to tell them. And if I don't like a story, like they say, you don't like, don't force the change, be the change. So it's like, if you don't like a story, do it better in your own way. And so I've done that with some of my things, and I will do that with future stories and all that. But
Um, well, the first thing I want, because kind of in that early fandom community, early days, maybe not super early, but just kind of before there was a Kickstarter. One of the big things from wrestling to you know anime to superheroes and everything was fan fiction. Did you ever dabble in before you went to college in writing fan fiction of some of these stories?
yeah. So we didn't have this conversation at the con. My first Okay, I wrote a lot of things leading up to my revelation, if you will, that I wanted to be a comic writer. But my first long form writing thing I ever did was a story called Avatar: Spirit of Earth. It was a story set in the Avatar: Last Airbender, Legend of Korra cartoon universe, and it was about the Avatar that came after Korra. So it was an OC fanfic. And I wrote one chapter of it just because it was right after the Korra season 1 finale, and I had to get it out of my head. And I was like, okay, it's out there. And then people are like, dude, I want more of this. Like, get me more of this. I'm like, okay. So this was, of course, for all you Korra fans out there, you know that it was 424 days between season 1 ending and season 2 beginning. That's a lot of time for me to write. So I went and I wrote like about 3 seasons before season 2 of Korra ever came out. And so for the record, I had the Avatar origin story long before 1 came out. All right, I'm making that known. So I was growing a fan base. I even had an original animated opening for Spirit of Earth, narrated by my aunt, no less. Just to help steal away. It's got almost like 200,000 views on YouTube. It's my most watched video ever. And I wrote it all. I bared my soul for that fanfic. And then IGN, where I posted it, shut down their blogs, and I lost the last whole book. So
Oh.
I know. So I got like 3 books of it saved on Microsoft Word, but I don't have the last book. I could write it again. It won't feel the same. But that story gave me the confidence to go and write other things. So I actually went and wrote like a Shazam TV series. We can talk about that later. And then that gave me the confidence to write comics. And then after that, I wrote a Ruby fanfic. You know Ruby?
I'm aware of it. I haven't seen Ruby yet.
Okay, it's all right.
Me, me,
I
and,
wrote.
me and anime, it's kind of like a weird. Like I love anime, but there's just kind of like there's like my top 5, 10 of them, and I love them. But then like I'm not like the connoisseur of it like I am superheroes and wrestling, where I'm like, oh
It's
yeah,
all
I
right.
watch all this. It's kind of like here, like Bebop, love it. Yu Yu Hakusho, love it. DBZ, love it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Pokemon,
I
love
just
it. And then they're like, have
dang
you seen
right.
this? It's like,
Yeah,
no.
I understand that. I understand that. But I wrote a Ruby fanfic, and that got a lot really popular. And then recently, like this year, I finally got into My Hero Academia. And
That's another
so
good one. Yes.
I started writing a fanfic of my own, class in there, my own characters. It's called Under Pressure. It's on fanfic.net right now. And I've got like a very loyal following. Like I get like hundreds of views every chapter and everything. It's great. Um, I finished the latest chapter. So let's get this going. I'm kidding. But yeah, I there's a prominent comic writer, I will not say who it is, who said that fan fiction is a stupid thing. Like fan fiction should not exist.
I
And
was
I
getting
want to
ready
tell
to
that
ask
guy,
about that. Yes.
yeah, I would tell that guy to shut the heck up, because if it wasn't for Avatar: Spirit of Earth, which again was my first truly long form writing thing ever, I would not be doing comics. I would not have met you at a Superman celebration. I probably wouldn't have ever gone to the Superman celebration. I'd be very limited in my comic experience. I would not have met any of my dear con friends who have helped inspire my life. Fan fiction gives me an outlet to write things that I don't have to sell. I just have to sell the premise. Like, hey, this is a new class in My Hero Academia, new story, new villains, and everything. And I've gotten a lot of loyal fans saying, like, dear gosh, this is so awesome. I didn't intend for it to be this awesome. I like to think that I write good things, but then you hear, like, reviews and you get all these follows on fanfic.net and fanfiction.net. And I'm like, okay, people are clearly responding to this, so I want to keep going. I mean, you say, oh, but you get that in comics too. But yeah, but this is just as good. And so fan fiction, if you want to write fan fiction out there, anybody, do it. Do it. Write it for you. Write it as long as you want. Don't let anyone tell you different. Unless it's like really, you know what I'm talking about, man. Like that kind of OC fanfic, or to
Yeah.
not OC, not OC, but like that kind of fanfic where it's just like, okay, you need help. All right, like that one's bad. Like
Yeah.
that's what I think that comic writer was trying to get at. Like that kind of fanfic can be bad. But if you're like just trying to tell a story, your own story in that universe, or even like a
Right.
side story of a character you love, go for it because
Right.
that can give you confidence for what you do next.
Absolutely. So you've written your own stuff. You eventually get into comic books. Is there? We talked about Matt Fraction.
Yeah.
But do you have any other sort of writers that you're through comic books or anything that you kind of gravitate towards? I like this style. I kind of write similarly to their style. Is there any inspirations and influences,
Well,
or
in
just
truth,
ones that you like?
okay. Well, just in terms of liking, I have a lot of favorites. Jimmy Palmiotti,
Yes,
the legendary
met him.
writer from.
Met him same celebration where I met. Well, not same year, but same
Yeah,
place I met you. Yep.
yeah. So you literally missed me then because I was at that one with Jimmy Palmiotti. I was right next to him actually.
Really?
But that yeah, that's another story though. But yeah, they were great.
Oh,
They
him and
were
Amanda.
great.
Yeah.
Him and Amanda, they're incredible, and he's tearing up the Kickstarter world. Totally jealous, but like he has one out right now called Rage, and he says that him and his paper films crew is like, we're telling our stories, we're telling adult stories for adult comic readers, and I totally respect that. He has always been a guy to push things in a direction that he knows that can be successful and fun. That's why his Harley Quinn run was so great. They wanted Harley Quinn to be evil in her solo comic, and he's like, no, we're going to be a comedy, and we're going to flesh her out more than anyone ever did. And now look where Harley is.
Right.
Everything that she has had since his comic is because of him and Amanda, obviously.
Yeah.
But Jimmy Palmiotti is great. He's been incredibly supportive of me. He's a great guy. Gail Simone, oh gosh, that amazing bear. I mean, woman, bear woman. Anyone who reads her Twitter handle or tweets will know what I'm talking about. But she's just a joy. She has such passion for the characters. She loves, Barbara and Red Sonja, and she was talking about the Secret Six today because it's the Suicide Squad. Birds of Prey, Black Canary. Uh, I I don't write like her. I definitely do not write like her. No, few can write like Gail Simone, but I definitely would say I have a similar kind of passion for it because when I love a character, like I love just to name DC characters like Shazam or Wildcat Ted Grant, I know I would give my all, just like Gail Simone gives her all for the characters that she loves. Um, I appreciate Scott Snyder
Oh yeah.
because yeah,
Love
I,
Scott
I
Snyder.
yeah, I had no idea who he was until I read New 52 Batman. And then it was just like, yeah, anytime it's, Scott Snyder on a title, pretty much I buy it because I know that he's going to tell deep stories, deep characters, great takes on villains, between like the Court of Owls and Riddler and all of them.
Right.
I know he's going to tear it up because that's just the style he is. He's great, and there are others out there that are like Matt Rosenberg. He's done DC and Marvel, and he just got done with a Grifter side story in Batman Urban Legends. He's really fun. There's a lot of people that I look up to. I don't think that I mimic any of their writing styles, if for no other reason than I'm trying to be my own writer.
Right.
Like for example, Gail Simone, and again I love her to death. She's met her multiple times. She's great. She has this way of writing comedy. I wouldn't do that. I mean, I know that comedy is subjective and everything, but like she has a way of writing comedy that suits her. but that won't suit me. So why would I mimic that if that's not my kind
Right.
of comedy style? And then Jimmy Palmiotti, as much as I love him, he has never been afraid to do, adult, super adult themes in the comics. And the worst I will do is occasional cussing at best, and then certain kinds of violence, like was what I have in Tokyo Blade Detectives.
And
So
that's actually, it's interesting you mention that, because that's something when we get to talk about Guardians that I'm going to circle back to, is that theme in your writing that I noticed.
thank you. I'll see. I'm curious to see what you see, but I look up to certain writers because I know that they have left this mark, and I would like to mimic that in one way, to where, people say like, oh, that's Todd. He did the epic Wildcat run, or he had that super long run on, Shazam, or I want to write a Poison Ivy solo series. I've wanted that for years, and I know Gail Samo would appreciate that, but or and Jimmy Palmiotti, but that's what I want from these writers, is to, see what they do, learn from their like passion and everything, and then eventually, hopefully, be able to give the chance to write a run on a series or whatever, and they'll go, "Yep, that's Todd. He wrote that character really, really well."
And real quick, you mentioned Scott Snyder. Do you think after his Batman run, you think he's kind of on the upper level of the greatest Batman writers of all time, with your Denny O'Neills and your Frank Millers and your
Easily,
Jeff Loebs? Yeah.
easy. It's not. I'm not saying it's not even close, but the run he had
Oh yeah.
from New 52 to Death Metal, like the scope, the scale, the willingness to tell like these very bold stories. It, it's you can't think of he was one of the biggest highlights of the New 52, and then
Absolutely.
of course they kept him going because he kept selling it. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. So yeah, he's easily one of the best Batman writers ever. It's you can't even debate that.
Yeah. And I'm hoping to meet him soon. Met Greg Capullo 3 times, but I'm hoping I got to meet Scott at some point in time in the
I
hopefully
tried
not too
to meet
distant
him.
future. Oh
I
shoot.
tried to meet him, but at C2E2 one time, but every time I went to his table, he wasn't there. And then I left him like a card to hoping he would contact me. He never did, but of course, like he doesn't know me. But
Exactly. Unfortunately.
yeah, but like I tried to meet him, and one day maybe I will. I think I almost met Greg Capullo one time as well, but we were both doing Artist Alley, and I didn't have a chance to go to his table. So that's just the
I
way it
met
works
Greg
sometimes.
at the bar one night at a convention, and like I just I'm kind of like, do I bother him? Do I bother him? And I'm like, I finally just throw caution to the wind. Hi, I love your art. And then he was just cool. Like there was people that weren't even there for the convention, hanging around the bar. Man can tell a story. There's people that
I'm
didn't
sure.
never read a comic book, and they were just like, they were asking questions, and he bought all of his drinks. And yeah, Greg Capullo is maybe the coolest guy in the world. I mean, I know that's high praise, but he really is.
I dig it.
So okay, I kind of teased this, but the book that I bought from you
Yep.
was your book Guardians.
Yes.
Tell me about that book. Tell me about your inspiration for that book, and yeah, just tell me about Guardians.
So, like I said, Guardians was my first comic series I ever wrote, and not surprisingly, it's superheroes because that's what I grew up on. And in fact, one of my friends, um, was like, you probably shouldn't write comics shouldn't write superhero comics because everyone's doing that. So naturally, I ignored them, and I wrote my story, and it's about two beings created by a deity to protect a city in need. They were given great power, perfect control of their power, zero people skills. So they stand on this watchtower and they watch over the city, and they'll wait to be needed, go down, save the day, and come right back because it's all they know how to do. But as time goes on, they start to ask themselves, is there more to our lives than just this purpose? One says yes, one says no. Supervillains start showing up, and the fun begins. And the basis of it all was just that I wanted to tell a different kind of superhero story. And every one you think about is that they had this tragic origin story, or they had like this destiny that was thrust upon them, but I didn't want that. I wanted to have a little fun and say, like, what if their origin story was literally they were snapped into existence and just told, "Hey, go save people." What does that do to the beings? What does that do to the people? What does that create? Because we know that I specifically state that they come from the creator, who I call the great maker, of their world, and it's a question, and it just raises all these big philosophical questions for them and the people, and it's just a fun dynamic, especially between the hero's element and chaos, because one looks like a superhero, the other looks like a supervillain, but he's
Right.
very heroic. And that was just another little fun little twist. I always like to say that my stories are, they start out as stereotypes, but then I twist the knife and it's like, oh, that's totally different. And that's what happened with Guardians. So
Not too many
yeah,
spoilers because I still got a lot more comic books
don't
to get
worry.
from you.
Yeah, we have 20 issues out, and I will eventually get back to that series, but I've been so busy with all my other series and money. Uh,
Right.
like I started that series with the goal of writing over 100 issues, and I've gotten a fifth of the way there. So, but yeah, that series will always be near and dear to my heart, and it sells well. Like like, oh, Todd, no one will buy your superhero comics. A lot of people have bought that superhero comic. I can tell you that.
And one of the things, and this is going back to what I said earlier about what I noticed about your writing style, is you mentioned you didn't really, other than maybe, and I don't even really remember swear words in the first four issues that
No,
I've read,
there's none.
but um, when I think of independent comics, and this isn't a knock on independent comics, don't get me wrong, but I
Uh,
think of a lot of people are wanting to really explore their creativity, and most independent, kind of like independent wrestling, they really push the boundaries. You push the different themes. You push things that you couldn't do at Marvel or DC with your comic. So whenever I pick up an independent comic, they're great, but sometimes it's like, okay, that's violent. Ooh, that's really hypersexualized, and or ooh,
yeah,
that's some language, or ooh, those are some themes that I wasn't prepared to deal with in this comic book. And not saying any of that is wrong by any stretch of the imagination. It's the writer's vision, and more often than not, it's done tastefully and done well. But what really impressed me about your book and what really stood out was it was an independent comic. It was well written, but the envelope wasn't really pushed. I could
not
give
yet.
I Not yet, yeah, at least so far. But like, I didn't really feel you know like if a kid came up and bought your comic book at your table, it'd be fine.
Yeah,
If he'd be fine if he bought the free, there wouldn't be like, oh hey, maybe you want to stop at issue whatever or whatever. Oh,
yeah,
that one's not good for you because somebody's gonna, there's a
yeah,
naked person and then they're gonna die. They're gonna die a bloody death in the next page. It's like no,
yeah,
a younger reader could read it. It's like Batman the Animated Series. A younger reader or younger person could get into it, still appreciate it, and so could somebody else and that's a little older and not feel insulted. So that's something
yeah.
I noticed about your writing. I don't know if I'm off base with that
You're
impression, but
not.
that's okay.
No, I wrote I wrote pretty much every one of my comics, and I'll tell you which one's the exceptions in a bit. But I wrote almost every one of my comics to where they're all ages, everyone can enjoy it. But if you are older, you'll understand more of it. So like with Guardians, the kids will like, they're superheroes, they got action, there's cool villains, you just met Tempest, but there's a lot cooler ones coming around. And but then the adults will see the themes. They'll see the themes about, the not the I don't like calling it this, but like the religious element, about
Right.
gods and, angels and all of that, and what it means to suddenly have saviors, and the moral dilemma of element and chaos of, is there more to my life than just this purpose? A kid won't understand that because all they're going to see is, oh, these are superheroes, but they don't know who they are. But the adult will go, oh, they're having an identity crisis of sorts and they're trying to figure out who they are. And that's fine. You could still enjoy the story of both ways. And I wrote my books to be that way. With Home, it's the same thing. It's got high fantasy. It's got monsters, and called the Shreef. But there are no violent deaths. There are no super horrific elements. But it's still a deep story. And 10,000 Miles is an exception because I call it my Disney story. And so there's always like that little hint of violence in a Disney movie just to kind of sell the drama of it all.
Right.
But the one exception is Tokyo Blade Detectives, because I called that my anime comic. And I say that, it is a full on anime, and most animes do not hold back in terms of certain elements. I don't go full tilt. I do not go Attack on Titan. But
Right.
I do have a violent death within like the first 3 pages. A person gets their throat sliced open. I do have the main character occasionally swear, like just small words, nothing too bad. But I do that because I'm paying respect to the anime that have come before it. But most of my 95% of all my books that I make are for all ages because I want to appeal to the widest audience possible.
I was gonna ask you. I picked up Guardians because I am a superhero guy.
There you go.
I drift to superheroes first, and then subsequently, check out the other a writer's other works. Like with case of Matt Fraction. Oh, I'll read Hawkeye, and then come sex criminals. You
Yeah,
know,
I'm not reading that one. That's for sure. So, and
but
that's fine. And that appeals kind of like what we were talking about Mr. Palmiotti earlier is that, Matt wanted to write that because he knew that there would be adult comic readers who
right,
would want to read that. And it was a huge hit. And if you look at what Mr. Palmiotti's done with, Rage and Pop Kill, was like he did one, I can't remember the title, but there was another one before that. And he's been super successful because he knows that there are people out there who want to read those kinds of comics, and that's fine. They
right,
absolutely can go make those comics, but I want to make ones that are mostly for all ages. Don't have cussing. You won't see a single cuss word in uh, Guardians or Home, 10,000 Miles, or Sherlock Holmes. Tokyo's the first one I swore in just because I needed it. I didn't need it, but I felt it would be true to the main character of Miko. So, but even still, I'm appealing to a wide audience, and I'm not trying to insult them, but I'm also trying to
right.
be true to myself as a writer.
But there were several other comics on that table. Kind of take if you could just you know may not only just sell me, but also sell like somebody who might stumble upon this episode. If they're not superheroes, aren't their thing. What are some of your other works? Brief
Okay.
synopsis of all your work.
All right. Home is a sci-fi fantasy miniseries about a young woman named Alicia who was taken from our world and thrown into another dimension, a realm of knights and monsters. And now she's stuck there, having to help these people with their problems so that she can get home, if she can get home, if she wants to go home. And we have the whole story all written. It's up on it. Most of my books are on Amazon, but this one is on Amazon. It's called Home, Volume One, Alicia's Tale. I highly recommend. It's one of my favorite stories I've ever written. 10,000 Miles is my Disney Pixar story, as I joked earlier. It's about two brothers who are about to be separated in life, and they decide to go on one last grand adventure together. They're going to dig their way to China. And yeah, yeah. And so the story delves into what that actually means, and of course, the hijinks that happen on the way to doing that. I have a Sherlock Holmes novel series called Sherlock Holmes: The Greatest Detective. We have 5 books right now. Number 6 is on the way ish, and it's my take on the characters set in the modern times and brand new mysteries. That one's a very popular one for some reason
I,
because
I
people just like Sherlock.
I got a question about that one.
Go ahead.
Um, so with Sherlock being an established character, is there any like barriers to being able to sell those stories, or is it like a public domain? Because I know there's been like fan series of there was like a while back there was like a fan made Star Trek series, but they couldn't make money off of it except through
Right.
donations because they didn't own the rights to do Star
Right.
Trek. They could just go like, oh, we're just a bunch of people screwing around, we didn't make no
Yeah.
money, and it was fine. Is
Yeah.
that the case with Sherlock, or what is that process like?
Sherlock is a public domain character.
Got you. Okay.
Most people don't realize that. And then ironically enough, the judge who ruled he was public domain was right here in Illinois. I had to look that up before writing my first book. And the catch is that the family slash estate of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, they um, they copyrighted the later stories, the ones of him being older. And so if you want to do certain things with those stories, you have to pay the estate. For example, Sherlock in those stories was a beekeeper. So I cannot say that my Sherlock is a beekeeper, which is fine. I don't like bees, but like that's something I can't touch. But all the main characters, Lestrade, Watson, Irene Adler, Mary, all of them are public domain, and I can loosely do almost anything as long as I don't infringe on those later stories, which I haven't even read. So I'm pretty covered on that one. But the only close thing I had was that I have a story called Hounds of Baskerville, which is, of course, a reference to the Hound of the Baskervilles.
Right.
And I almost got in trouble with the title because Amazon, who I have it up there with, they were like, we're pretty sure this is going to sound too confusing. And I'm like, wait a minute. The original story was Sherlock Holmes, the Hound of the Baskervilles. Mine is Sherlock Holmes, the Great Detective, Hounds of Baskerville. That's an entirely different title. No one's going to get confused. And sure enough, they approved that. So that's as close as I got. But as long as I find I'm within certain guidelines, I'll be fine.
Okay. I was just
No,
curious how that
no.
worked. So,
Trust me, a lot of people are curious because they're like, "Wait, you can do that?" Like, yeah, I can do that. Moving on with my stories, I have a Seekers of Science, which is a science-focused comic. I'm talking like real science here, and it stars us two very dear friends of mine, and Dr. Tracy Fanara and Tamara Robertson. And it's about them in our world, basically. And each issue, we solve a real world problem with real world science. And we're trying to educate the next generation to both appreciate science, love science, and see that science can be a career that you can do and love because my friends, Dr. Tracy and Tamara, they absolutely love their sciency jobs. So like that was a very interesting experience. You got 4 issues out of that, and volume one's up on Amazon. And then finally, I have Tokyo Blade Detectives, which is my anime comic. It's about Tokyo 200 years into the future. The country's basically been burned to the ground, rebuilt with technology, and to try and stop the violence, they have instituted a law that no one can break, no guns allowed. And enter a 16-year-old girl named Mika who's just trying to make life as a detective in the chaos that is Tokyo because there's factions trying to take over, and they've made laser swords to fill the power vacuum that guns left behind. So every arc is special. Every arc builds upon what came before it and tells this compelling narrative that'll drive everything forward. And it's something I'm very, very proud of. We have 4 issues out right now, and hopefully we'll be working on the second arc soon enough.
um, so this leads to the second part of all the still related to comic books, but to everything else, and that is pro wrestling. So when did you get started liking pro wrestling? Because I know the first thing that really drew me to your table was you had would you call it a prototype or of an AEW comic book
Yeah.
sitting on your table. I'm like, oh, that's AEW. That's
Uh-huh.
great.
Uh-huh.
So how did you become a wrestling fan? And we'll start there. How did you become a wrestling fan?
So, I got into wrestling right after the Attitude Era. So, which is probably good because I was really young at the time. So I got into what they call the Ruthless Aggression Era in WWE. And I got into it by accident. I don't even remember how. Like I apparently was a huge Hulk Hogan fan when I was really young. Like I had a Hulk Hogan suitcase. I vividly remember that. But I stopped. I didn't watch it because of my parents, and then when I did start watching it again, I would have to hide it from my parents. So I'd always have my finger on the previous channel button. So the moment they entered my room, I would be changing the channel. They knew. I'm sure they do. They're parents. They're
I
not
always
idiots.
that I went through that a little bit during the school year. I was never allowed to watch wrestling during the week. I could watch Sunday Night Heat and things like that,
Yeah.
but I couldn't watch Raw. So I would
Yeah.
always have the previous channel button on, like Monday Night Football or St. Louis
Right.
Cardinals baseball.
Right.
So you know,
So yeah. So
yeah,
anyway, so I'm watching the WWE for years. Then I'm on a family what do I call it excursion to my aunt's house in Kentucky. We're celebrating Christmas, and I'm in the basement because I got a TV there, and I'm watching James Bond. And this was on TNN with the national network before it became Spike TV, and they played a commercial for TNA Impact. And I'm like, well, what's this? And I'm like, wait, there's more wrestling outside of WWE? I know, a shocking statement in our current climate, but still. So I was like, okay, so let's start watching this. So I started watching Impact, and that was when it was the 60-minute adrenaline rush over on Saturdays, and then
Right.
eventually moved to Thursdays, where it grew into 2 hours show, which it still is today. Um, so I was watching that. Then ECW came back, and I tried to watch that, and it just went on and on and on, and then eventually, gosh, 4 years ago, give or take, a friend of mine who was a much more diehard. He was much more diehard wrestling than I was, and technically still am. Um, but he said, "Hey Todd, have you ever heard of Ring of Honor?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I recall Ring of Honor. I'd heard about it before from various people." And he goes, "Well, there's this pay-per-view on tonight. And it's free. You should watch it." I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So I watched Ring of Honor, and this was when Cody Rhodes was there. This was when the Young Bucks were there. This was when Bullet Club for Life. They were part of that. So I started watching that. I'm like, that's actually kind of cool. So I started getting into that, and then this is when All In was starting to get
I was
tossed
getting ready to
around.
ask you about that.
So All In was an event that, for those who don't know, that was started as a joke. It started as a bet. It was
Well,
a bet.
before
It
you
was a
go on, I'm going to say on this very podcast started with me and two people I met at All In talking
There you
about
go.
our experience at All In,
Yeah.
and there's several podcasts relating to All In, so this just brings everything full circle. This is just another layer of the Geeking Out
Oh,
podcast talking about All
yeah.
In.
Oh, it gets better, my dear geek. So All In was this bet by Cody Rhodes and Dave Meltzer, and the bet was is that Cody, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega could not sell out an arena, like 10,000 seat arena, because it was indie wrestling. It was indie wrestling. This was Ring of Honor. It's not going to sell out a 10,000 seat arena. So they made the bet. They called in like every favor they had, and they sold out the arena to 11,262 people, of which I was one of them. Yes,
Same.
I had never been to a WWE show, I'd never been to an Impact show, but there was something about All In where I'm just like, you know what, I want to go, and I can actually tell you what it was that set me off. You want to know what it was?
Let's hear it.
Okay. Do you remember the press conference that they had? Like a
Yes.
few, yeah. Well, they had like Flip going through a table,
Right.
and they brought out some of the female talent, like Tessa Blanchard and everything out. At the end of the show, they announced that Rey Mysterio was going to be there, and I'm like, done, done. I loved
Okay.
Rey Mysterio. I loved everything about him, and I was like, I gotta see Rey Mysterio wrestle. And that was a good move because I'll probably never see him wrestle live anymore because he's with WWE. But I went to All In. I got a ticket. I was one of the lucky 11,262, and it changed my life. All
Oh
right.
yes.
I was there. I mean, you were there. You
Yeah.
were there. The atmosphere, the Bullet Club
it it's
signs.
it was the Woodstock of wrestling. I think
I
kind
like
of
that.
with I've met so many people that I still keep in touch with through All In and the
Yeah.
convention, the Starcast convention. It's
Yeah.
like I mentioned the Woodstock of wrestling, but people who there's always like this weird bond of like, oh, you were at Woodstock, and like with the people that were at the original, they have
Yeah.
this bond, and it's like I feel the same things kind of with those of us that got to go to All In. There's always just
Yeah.
kind of this bond of like, oh yeah, we were part of that.
Yeah.
It's just
So I go to All In. It was a great night. So many great matches, so many great memories. And so I was hooked. And I'm just like, and I was starting to watch, I was watching Being the Elite at this time because it helped me get ready for All In and everything. And oh yeah, I was watching Lucha Underground too. That was it. Lucha Underground, like that was a huge thing for me when it was on. Miss it so. But then they started to get the rumors going about, Cody, the Bucks, Kenny, Hangman were all branching out and they were going to do their own thing. And sure enough, all Elite Wrestling was born. And I'm like, I gotta support this. This is because at this point in time, NXT was kind of going a little bit past its peak, in my opinion. WWE was just not as good as it used to be. And I'm like, I want to be a part of this revolution. I want to say that I was there when this happened. And so I was supporting AEW, Double or Nothing. I tried to go to all, but the first All Out, I couldn't get a ticket. And um, I had an opportunity, a very rare opportunity, because I live in a place called Champaign, Illinois, which happens to have a university called the University of Illinois. An alumni of that university is Tony Khan. So in 2019, well, before everything went to crap, uh,
Yeah.
they were gonna do a show in Champaign, Illinois, and Tony Khan, Cody Brandy, MJF were all gonna be there for a special meet and greet. And I'm like, dear God, I gotta go. So I had like about 3 weeks notice, and I was like, you know what I want to do? I want to make an AEW comic. And I was like, well, how should I handle this? And so I had my dedicated artist Alex Garcia. He's actually the one who did Guardians mostly. Um, and I said, hey, I need you to make me a cover. And he goes, yeah, okay. So I got the cover, I printed it out, and I went to the meet and greet. The fans are great. I was actually on TV. My local news station interviewed me for the show. They're like, hey, who wants to be interviewed? I'm like, me. And I dropped the promo. It was great, good stuff. Um, so I get to Cody and I go, hey, Mr. Rhodes, if I may, I am a comic writer and I'd love to make an AW comic. If you give me permission, I will be at the Champagne show and I'll give it to you. And he goes, okay, I'll contact you. He never did. He never contacted me. So I was just like, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to do it anyway. So I made an 8-page comic for AEW. This was again very early AEW. This is like 2 months into their Dynamite run, and I made it all about the elites and going from the indies to doing the first Double or Nothing show and building up the division. I had a shot of Brandy with Awesome Kong, which is a little more ironic right now,
Yeah.
but and I'm just like, I'm going to do this. And so I brought like 20 comics to the Champagne show December 7th, 2019. And I gave it to like everybody I could. I gave it to Leva Bates. I gave it to Pentagon and Phoenix, who are amazing guys, by the way. I gave it to Justin Roberts. He loved it. He was showing it to other fans. He loved it so much. And I had a sign, an actual sign that said, let me make an AEW comic. And at the end of the night, I was able to get it to Cody Rhodes, and I said, "Hey, Mr. Rhodes, I don't know if you remember me. Here's the comic." And he said, "Oh my gosh, this is awesome!" And he said, "I'm gonna give it to the proper people. We'll talk to you about it." And he shook my hands. He said, "Thank you for the work." I never got a call, but I didn't give up though. I didn't
I
give up because
I defend Cody a lot on this channel. There's gonna be like 1,000 people going like, "See, told you he was a piece of shit. See, told you
yeah.
Cody sucked." Now,
Now I know he's a busy man, but like he I know he remembers me because for a conversation I'll tell you later. But I never gave up. I kept promoting it, and eventually I got the comic into the hands of Mikey Ruckus, who was of course the maestro behind pretty much all the AEW music. And he got me in touch through long story short, one of the head licensing people of AEW, and I said, "Hey, I'm willing to do this. I'll even do the first issue for free if you want." And I even talked to him about like places we could sell it, and I gave him ideas, the head licensing guy, ideas on like where we could sell the comic. It's like, yeah, I didn't think about that. It's like that's why I want to work with you because I have these ideas because I've been in these places before, and that's literally like 3 weeks before the pandemic hit. It
dude.
sucked. Like I was at C2E2, which is where they had Revolution. I was in RS Alley. I gave the comic to Alex Jabali. No joke. Uh, I gave it to him. I gave it to a whole bunch of fans. I Mikey almost got me into Revolution, even though it was sold out. He's like, "Do you have tickets?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "Oh, let me ask around." I'm like, "Sweet." It never happened, but still, Mikey's a great guy. But I never gave up, and I'm still trying to get this AEW comic made. And eventually, that led to another comic that I know you read. Would you like to
Yes.
talk about that now?
Yes, because this was well, set the stage. You also wrote a comic for Thunder Rosa, and Thunder Rosa is maybe my favorite female wrestler right now.
Okay. Okay. First of all, you said something incorrect.
What's that?
Okay, I didn't write a comic for Thunder Rosa. I wrote a comic for Thunder Rosa.
See, I couldn't do that justice, so I had to
Yeah,
let you
you're
do
welcome. So
it.
yeah, I have written slash am writing a comic for Thunder Rosa. So that literally came out in the most random way ever. Because I'm not gonna lie, I did not know about Thunder Rosa. Okay, I gotta say this correctly. I didn't know about the persona of Thunder Rosa. I had apparently seen her in Lucha Underground as Cobra Moon. I did not realize that was her. But I had not heard of Thunder Rosa until she showed up in AEW to challenge Hikaru Shida for the AEW Women's Title. And my friends, Maria and Jack, they were like diehard Thunder Rosa fans, and I'm just like, well, maybe I should write a comic about her. And they go, well, she's got an email on her website. Why don't you just go and contact her? So I'm like, yeah, okay. So I go and I write an email, say, hey, Miss Thunder Rosa, my name's Todd Black. I'm a comic writer, and I'd love to write a comic about you. And I'm like, send, done. I can say I did it. No problem. I'm never going to hear from her. 5 minutes later.
Yeah, that is the. I just want to point out that is like also the anxiety of reaching out to anybody
Yeah,
for anything. There's
all the
so
time.
many like I'm gonna ask this wrestler if I can do an interview, and even if it's
Yeah.
like like I'm not downplaying anybody, but like just the local guys. I'm like, I hope I didn't sound like an idiot, and they get back to
No.
me.
I do that all the time, all the time. So anyway, so I email her, and literally like 5 minutes later, right after I just told everybody, yeah, hey, I sent her an email, she emails me back and goes, hey, yeah, I'd love to do that. I'm like, oh, okay then, let's do that. So we called each other. I've talked to her quite a bit, and she sent me basically a couple blocks of text about her life, and I was just like, dang, this is actually a really awesome story. So we are doing a 3-issue miniseries about Thunder Rosa. Issue 1 is out right now on thunderrosa.net. And issue 2 hopefully will be out before All Out, where I'm hoping that she kicks the butt of a certain DMD. So I hate dentists. So, but yeah, the comic, it turned out really well. She's actually sold it at a couple of her Mission Pro Wrestling events, which is of course the brand that she runs with her husband. And it's it's just it's hilariously awesome because like this is one of the most epic women in wrestling. I truly believe. Like once I knew her story and I saw her wrestle, and the passion she has for this. I'm a big guy. I'm all about passion. I really am.
Right.
And she has it. She has it all the time, 100%. Whether it's in AEW, NWA, Mission Pro Wrestling, she showed up at Impact to go and fight Deonna Purrazzo, and she might have lost, but she was giving it her all every single time. That freaking headpiece. Did you see the headpiece
I haven't seen the
of
Impact pay per view
her?
yet.
Well, she challenged Deonna Purrazzo at Slammiversary, and she came out in this basically Aztec warrior esque headpiece, and it was just like, oh, that's so awesome. Did she need to do that? No. Did she do that? Yes, because she's Thunder Rosa. So, but she is so awesome. She's so kind. Um, the bad thing is that she's so busy that it's been hard at times to do the comic, but I know that she's busy. I know it's not a personal thing, and we get it done. And Alex is the one working on the art for the comic, and he's killing it. And it's fun sending her the pages and seeing her responses. Like we got the final page of number 2. She really likes. She's like, that page is so awesome. I'm like, well, I'm glad because this is my goal. I told her my goal is not just to make the comic, it's to make you happy with the comic because it is your comic and it needs to be 100% approved by you before we give it to anybody. So, but yeah, issue 1's done. Issue 2 is almost ready to go, and then we'll do issue 3. And it's going to be fun. I highly recommend it. Again, thunderrosa.net. Or if you're at a con that I just happen to be at, including Planet Comic Con in 3 weeks 2 weeks in Kansas City, Missouri.
I think maybe 1 week by the time this comes out.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. It's the 20th through the 22nd. Let's just put it that way.
Yes.
So I will be there, and I will be selling the Thunder Rosa comic, and I will be giving away a limited amount of copies of the AEW comic because tying this back to that fan stuff versus domain stuff. This is a fan thing. I cannot sell the AEW comic because I am not officially associated with AEW yet. So I have to give away that comic, but I can sell the Thunder Rosa comic. So, but yeah.
And I'm also hoping in a few weeks at All Out that I can meet Thunder Rosa and just really want to meet Thunder Rosa.
Since I'm going to be there, I can give you a copy of number 1, and then you can have her sign it.
Oh yeah, I have that, and then I have another friend of the show, Eric Hodson. I bought a piece from him. It's her it's Britt Baker fighting Thunder Rosa. I got Britt. I just need Thunder Rosa's signature on it now for what is still at the time of this recording the match of the year in 2021.
Okay, do you want to hear something I want to do? I don't think I'll do it. I don't think I have the heart to do it, but the con I'm going to next is a Planet Comic Con, as I said. Britt is going to be there. So here's what I want to do. I want to go up to her table, and I'm going to fake being a fan. I'm going to show her the AEW comic, And I go, hey, Miss Baker, big fan. I wanted to show you this. Maybe you'd like it. And I'm sure she'll say, the usual stuff and all that. And I was like, hey, can we take a picture together with you holding the AEW comic? And she'll go, sure. And then what I'll do is I'll drop the comic and then I'll swap it out for Thunder Rosa comic.
Don't do that to Britt. Britt's a nice lady.
And so we'll take the picture of her with the Thunder Rosa comic, maybe smiling, giving it a thumbs up, and then I'll post the picture online saying Thunder Rosa comic, Todd written, Britt Baker approved. Isn't that nice, Thunder Rosa?
I mean, I love the idea, but
Yeah.
don't be mean to Britt. Britt's awesome.
But I mean, she's a dentist. Doesn't she deserve it? I mean, come on. But no, I don't think I'll do that. But like, I would totally do that just to see if she'll go like full Brit heel, and like go online like, I didn't approve this. This is fake news. Like, no, it really isn't. I swapped it out when I dropped the comic. Don't you remember me doing that? Start a war, and then maybe I'll actually get her to mention the comic on AEW. That would be pretty cool.
That would be cool.
That would be cool. So I'm thinking about it. I'm going to be an artist ally, so I will have access to her. But I don't know if I'm going to be that mean. But for the honor of Thunder Rosa, I just might. I don't
know. So you've mentioned you're doing artist ally at Planet Comic Con. I met you in Metropolis. Do you have any like fun convention stories or interesting convention stories of being just one of the people with a booth? I mean, that's
there's all kinds. I mean, you do this. I've been doing cons or tabling at cons for about 6 years, give or take, and there's stories everywhere. I mean, one of my first best ones was that my first sale ever, like my first ever Comic-Con sale, was 5 minutes into C2E2. And this guy walks by my table, and he has a DePaul Blue Demons shirt, which is a college in Chicago. That was actually my alma mater.
Okay.
And so I go, oh, DePaul. And he goes, what? And I motion to the shirt, and he goes, oh yeah. I was like, no, you don't understand. That's my alma mater. And he goes, oh, I got this at a Goodwill store.
Oh.
Yeah. No, but here's the twist. He still bought a comic from me. So the only reason I got that first comic sale was because he just happened to have gotten a DePaul shirt, and so it's just like that's perfect. So
have you ever, one of the things that happens for the people in Artist Alley at these at conventions is they do the portfolio reviews, and they talk to people that have quote unquote made it in the comic book industry. Have you ever partaken in anything like that during any of your convention travels?
Participated in what?
The portfolio reviews.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to tell that story.
Okay. You don't have to tell anything you don't want to tell.
I had a portfolio review that, let's just say, it was not as advertised. I had a guy, I won't say what company, he basically promised me a lot. Then he revealed he doesn't even hire the writers, and I'm like, well, then what the fork was this all about? And then he blasted me online on Twitter and then blocked me. And this is like a major person in a major company, and I will never forget it. He also gave me a business card with the wrong phone number. So like, dick move, dude. So yeah, but I ironically, when it comes to the reviews, they're usually for artists. They're not for writers.
Gotcha.
And I even went to some of them thinking like this will be about writing, and they go, no, this is about art. So I show them the books anyway, and they go, this is nice. We might have to contact you. They never do. But I gotta keep pushing. Gotta keep pushing. So
one thing, this is circling way back, but you mentioned how excited you were in 2011 attending your first convention, and I think anybody who goes to is big into going to comic book conventions or anime or wrestling conventions, whatever. That first convention, they always, it's so exciting. They got like 100 stories from it.
Yeah.
Do you have any like stories from your first convention that you attended as a fan? Did you meet anybody cool? Did you buy any cool comic books? Did you?
My first con was 2011, as I said. That was the year that Thor was coming out. Okay. They had Chris Hemsworth there.
Oh, really?
And yeah, they had a VIP package where you could meet Chris Hemsworth. And so my mom, being the best mom ever, bought me a VIP pass. It was like $200, so I could go meet Thor. And I met him, great guy. But my story is not that one. My story is about when he did a panel. I had VIP access to the panel because of what I had. And when it came to the Q&A, I went and asked a question. And the question was this. At the time, there had been multiple actors who had done multiple comic book roles. Like Chris Evans was Human Torch, Captain America, Ryan Reynolds was Green Lantern, Deadpool. And I was like, would you consider maybe doing another comic book role if the opportunity arose? I realize now that probably wasn't the best question because he was just doing Thor, and obviously we know what happened with that.
Right.
But I recommended Aquaman. Now, I want to pause right here because you got to remember this is 2011 when I said Aquaman, and Aquaman at that time was at this point a very much a meme joke. And I swear to God, there was this punk kid who I almost hit who laughed at me when I said Aquaman because he said Aquaman was stupid, that there wouldn't be another movie about him, or there wouldn't be a movie about him, and it wouldn't be as good as Thor. And Chris Hemsworth played it like a gentleman. He said, like, I never really thought about it, but I'm sure he'd be cool. And of course, fast forward to 2018, not only was Aquaman made into a movie, not only was it featured the star cool actor in Jason Momoa, it made $1 billion. So I want to find that kid. I know he's not a kid anymore. I want to say, you remember me? You laughed at me when I said that you should be an Aquaman movie, and here's your proof, $1 billion film. Suck it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I was booed at that panel. It wasn't just that brat kid, but people because at the time Aquaman was a meme, even though if I watched the Justice League cartoon where he was not a meme. He had the hook hand, the mullet, and everything. Okay, but everyone was thinking Super Friends. And so now, that stigma, that stereotype is gone thanks to Momoa. But at the time, like I was apparently like one of the few who wanted an Aquaman movie, and so to get that vindication eventually was very much worth it.
I can
But
relate.
yeah,
I never have that much of a story, but I can relate somewhat because I was reading I didn't buy the single issues, but I got the trades of the New 52 Aquaman, which was
yeah,
really, really, really good.
yeah, I
And
loved it.
I remember like just saying like, oh yeah, like saying to my friends, oh yeah, Aquaman's a good book, and they would just be like, oh, you're reading about a man that talks to fish. I'm reading about Tony Stark. I'm reading
Yeah,
about, I'm reading Thor right now. Why are you reading about this? And like, no, it's good. I don't believe you. There's no way it will ever be good. And I remember just finally, like, they see the movie and they're like, oh, hey, yeah, that wasn't bad. Like, you gonna read the book now? You gonna read the book that I suggested 10 years ago to read?
yeah. I will never forget. Actually, it was the next year, I believe, 2012. This was right before the New 52 hit, and they announced that Jeff Johns was going to do the Aquaman story. And I actually got to meet Jeff Johns. That was the only time I got to see him.
What's
But I
he
thanked
like?
him. Uh, he was nice. I mean, very comic book guy. He wore a hat and everything. I didn't have the longest interaction, but he was nice enough.
Okay.
My opinion of him has differed because of certain things with the DC movies, but that's another story entirely.
Right.
But I thanked him for wanting to do this because I wanted Aquaman to be taken seriously. And then I will never forget when Aquaman #1 for the New 52 was in the top 10 selling comic books of that month. Like Aquaman, it was in the top 10. They're like, wait, what? Aquaman, like Aquaman, and it's like,
Yeah,
told you.
because the New 52 is what I always like comics, but like I never had like that jumping on point to where when I could actually you know
Yeah,
when I had a job and could afford to buy comic books, I didn't know where to jump in because I'm like, I don't know who these people are, what's going on. I'm like, was so confused. And they're like, hey, DC's rebooting. I'm like, okay, I want this and this and this and this and
yeah.
this.
That's literally what I did because when I got into DC, I mainly stuck with the Batman books outside of a few exceptions. And then when the New 52 happened, I'm like, okay, let's get Justice League, let's get Batman, let's get Teen Titans because I had just rebooted. I got Aquaman, of course. So there was a lot there, and it was just like, yep, let's get that, let's get that, let's get that. And was it perfect? No, but it was a perfect thing for me to, get into the series that I would never have gotten before.
Right.
So
And I just
yeah,
remember, gotta love that first part of that first issue of Aquaman where they're like, so, you talk to fish. No, I don't. Fish don't
I know.
talk. I
Yeah,
telepathically communicate with fish. Would you like
yeah,
some water? You're gonna probably get sick. No, I'm human. It's like it just
yeah,
deconstructed all the argument about Aquaman. It's like,
yeah.
nope. Nope.
Yeah. Or you forgot about the best one. Hi, Aquaman. What would you like? Fish and chips.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And then the other favorite one where he's still at the restaurant. This dick of a reporter goes, "So what's it feel like being the biggest joke in the Justice League?" And he activates his trident as if to tell him, "Dude, shut up, okay? Like, stop it."
Yeah,
So
that was the best. Like they didn't completely break the fourth wall, but they did
got
enough to
close.
where they got close to where like you can just tell this is Jeff just kind of going, "You people really need to shut up.
Yeah.
You people are
So
wrong."
yeah. So
What are your goals going forward? You know, we're back into convention season. Uh, you know, be
yeah.
able to promote your work more. What are your 2021, 2022 goals as a writer?
World domination. No.
Okay. I
Uh,
mean, we'll put that down.
okay. No. The
when
first one is
when the Todd rules,
the Todd. The Todd.
when the Todd rules, we know
The
it
Todd.
started here first. Yes.
There you go. See, and you can't say you didn't see it coming because I advertised.
Yep.
Advertised. Anyway, um, my honest to goodness goals is I want to have fun in every con, which I know sounds stupid, but it's true. Like I just did before we did this interview, I did a Facebook show, and I was just gushing over the fact that I was back at the con and I got to see all my friends again. And I sold a bunch of books, but for like Planet Comic Con, and then I'm going to be at C2B2 either as a fan or as Sally. I honestly don't know. And then I got another one in Grand Rapids, Michigan called uh, Grand Rapids Comic Con. That's a good one, and I just want to have fun at every con. I want to sell as many books as I can. I want to promote myself where I can, and then hopefully next year I'll be at twice as many cons. Because I'm only doing 5 cons this year because I'm still nervous about the pandemic. I don't want to push it too far. Especially I want to get back into the swing of things, and then next year I can go all out. Oh, oh! I just did that. Laugh, dang you! There you go. It's like wrestling reference.
I was getting
So
confused. I'm like, so I thought you were going to all out. Like that was
no,
my.
that was a joke. It was a Dylan. Gosh dang it, man! You're supposed to be a geek. Anyway,
And I
but
make
I'm only
puns on the show, so on the
fail,
live stream. So like, yeah, I failed this time.
fail. Anyway, but I want to go to each con. I want to have fun, and I want to see my friends again. I just want to feel it. I want to feel the con experience again because it's been 18 months before Superman Celebration came around since my last con, and I just want to enjoy it. And I'm still making comics, like I said. I'm making Thunder Rosa #2. We're gonna have the Thunder Rosa #3 done before the end of the year, no doubt. And then there's another comic I'm working on secret that more than likely be done by the end of the year as well. So I just want to keep making comics and show them off at the cons, and meet new people, and just get back into the swing of being an actual comic person again.
Right. And this last question, and I probably should ask this one way back, but is this what do you think of the Superman celebration? I know this is kind of one of the it's kind of a convention that a lot of people look at differently. You know, it's kind of held in high regard to some, and kind of looked at as not as good to others. But you know, as someone who's
Well,
been a guest there, what do you think of the Superman celebration Metropolis?
it's one of my favorite cons I do all year, and I always do consistently well there in terms of sales. I had my best year ever this year, ironically enough. For those, I can see why some people might not like it as much because it's more of a festival in certain ways than a Comic Con. Because obviously it's mostly outside. We have a whole street dedicated to vendors and all that, and we have a very small artist alley. But it's got that homey feel. The crowds are never too big that you're never gonna have like a San Diego Comic Con crowd there. You're never gonna be like shoved into a room, shoulder to shoulder like you would be like New York Comic Con or whatever, and that's fine. It's a smaller con, and if you go there, you're gonna have a meaningful conversation. You're gonna have some fun. It's one that you won't go all 3 days unless you absolutely want to. I didn't even go all 3 days. I was there only Friday and Saturday, but it's a beautiful con because the people who run it take care of it. They take care of you. They take care of the artists. They take care of the celebrities. The staff, when I was there, they were incredibly kind. There was a guy named Dylan there. He was constantly saying, "Hey, do you need anything? Do you need water? Do you need a drink?" And I said, "Yeah, bring me customers." And he goes, "Okay." And then ironically enough, we had a surge not long afterwards. I was like, "You're really good at your job." So he was a great guy. We had two caretakers and Mama Wanda and Papa Cliff. That was the actual names they had on their carts, and they were just the sweetest people. Um, it's if you want to go to like a true Comic Con, then sure, don't go to Metropolis. But if you want to go to a convention that is small, it has that hometown feel, it has something for you to enjoy in a day, then yeah, go to that because they got the Superman museum, they got the Superman statue, they do panels, they got Artist Alley. They do a lot of good things there. It will never be a super mega con, but it never was meant to be. It's a Superman celebration. So if you're nearby, go and enjoy it. There is fun in these smaller cons. I do promise you, and I'm not just saying that because I was there. I really do love this con.
It's great for the area, especially in an area like
Exactly.
that. Like they need all they can get out of that con, and I'm really hoping they did well with it this past year. But
But based on what I've seen or I was told, they did good. I mean, especially with the pandemic still going on.
right,
Because we were all worried. We were all worried about the turnout, and then Friday was solid. Saturday was great, especially like the first 3 hours. Um, and the weather didn't help because it was so
oh
hot. It
yeah,
was so humid. It sucked. But even with that, the people still came. Again, Artist Alley, I can confirm that Artist Alley had plenty of sales between my table, the table next to me, the movie poster guy, the Harley Quinn artist. We had a lot of people buying things.
the
I can
Dark Side
guarantee.
cosplayer.
Oh, he was great.
Yes.
Uh, who's the best cosplayer? Darkseid is. Uh, oh, sure, you get that one. Nice. But it's a great con. I go to it every year. I was actually really kind of happy that this was my first con because it was a smaller con, so I could get my routine back down, and then when I go to Planet, and that's a much bigger con for the region, I'll be much more prepared. So, but no, I love Superman Celebration. I'll go there every year until they don't have it anymore.
You just opened up another question. You mentioned having a routine. What is it? What is it actually like? As someone that goes to multiple cons a year as an artist, like what is the routine? Like what is put us in the shoes of an artist or a writer.
Yeah.
At Comic Con. What's that like?
Okay, so the first thing is, of course, the preparation. You gotta look at the con you're going to. So for me, it's a Superman Celebration, and you gotta go, okay, what do I have? What do I need? So I got my confirmation for Superman Celebration about July 2nd. So about 3 weeks, no, 4 weeks before the show actually happened, which in this case was a perfect amount of time. So I still had all my books from the last con that I was supposed to go to already there. So I just double checked everything. I made sure I had most of it. And I did, but I had to order a few things. So that's the first thing is preparation. Is like, do you have all the books that you know you're going to sell or that you're going to try and sell? So once you have that done, then you think about, where am I going to stay? I can drive to Metropolis within 4 hours. So that wasn't an issue. I was only going to be there 2 days. So I only needed a hotel for one night. And so I got that at a relatively nice price. And um, then it's like, okay, what do I need for my stands? So whether you're a writer or artist, you need to prop up your books in a way that make them uh, viewable and make them stand out in their own way. So I have a bunch of you saw them. I have like a nice rack. I have a nice rack. I have a nice book rack. I could say so many jokes right there, but I won't. I have a nice book rack. I had some book stands to prop things up, and that way people can see it as they're going by my table. So I wanted to make sure I had all of that. I might actually need to get some more for a Planet, but we'll see how much time I have. And then once you're all ready, the night before, you pack your car with as much stuff as you feel comfortable with. I put like all my metal stands and everything because I was sure people weren't going to steal that. Um, I woke up at 4 a.m. the Friday morning, which is the day of the con, and I drove right down to Metropolis. I got there at around 8. I set up, got everything ready. I did like a nice walk around because I knew I wouldn't leave my table once I was inside. and it started. So I did a nice walk around, went to the Superman Museum. Like, it's such a great
Oh
place.
yeah,
It's
it's
so
awesome.
good. It's great. Like if you go to Metropolis Superman Celebration for anything, go to the Superman Museum. You pay like $8 and you get to see like so much Superman memorabilia from like all the different properties. It's incredible. So, but you get set up and then the con happens and you're on the clock. You're waiting, you're trying to, connect with the people like I did with you
Right.
and get them to your table, and it can be hard, especially if you have like a slower period, which we definitely had at the Superman celebration at times. But then when you're done with the first day, you tear down as much as you feel comfortable with. We were in a basement that could be locked, so I just left all my stuff there. And then, we went day two. Then I broke everything down, went back to my car. We went home. And then on Monday, I looked over everything and I basically made a list of everything I needed to buy for my next con. And I bought everything. And I'm like, I already have my hotel prepped because I planned for that a while ago. And, you start the process all over again. And so 2 week or at the time of this recording, it's 2 weeks. So like 2 weeks from today, I will not only have been at the con for a full day, but I'll be at my hotel and I'll know that I've prepared for just about everything. So, and then when the con's done, I'm preparing for the next one. So it's a cycle, but it's one that has a lot of fun moments.
Is there a is there a dream con that you want to be a guest at some point? Like
New
that's
York.
New York. Okay.
I I have tried so many times to get into New York Comic Con because I have heard from so many people that I trust who have been there in Artist Alley that it is a seller's paradise. Artist Alley, they go to Artist Alley to buy comics. Like a friend of mine actually set a world record for how many graphic novels he sold in a New York Comic Con weekend. And I truly believe, I know I can't back this up with proof, but I truly believe that if 2020 had actually gone correctly and not had this dumb thing called a pandemic, I would have been at a New York Comic Con that year. I don't know why. I just had a feeling. But and then this year, I could have potentially gotten in. A friend of mine who, let's just say he's on my level, he got in, but I didn't want to do it because A, expenses, B, New York is not exactly the best place with the pandemic right now, and C, it's just I wouldn't have felt comfortable. But next year I'm gonna try again because that is the one that I want to do. I have a friend in New York that I can stay with, so that'll cut down on costs. And so then it's just a driving expedition, which I'm fine with. So that is the dream is New York Comic Con.
Absolutely. Well, I wish you all the best because you,
Thanks.
um, just from reading what I've read so far, and I'm definitely gonna be buying more comics sooner rather than later. Um, I definitely more people need to read your stuff. It's really I don't want to quote. I don't want to use this quote because it's kind of a bad thing on our live stream, but it is good shit, pal. It's good shit. um,
Well, thank you.
but yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I'm definitely open to having you back on here when you get some new projects going, or to when I finished all of Guardians to have another a discussion and read some of your other work, or maybe when you finally get that AEW comic book printed, we'll
That's the dream.
we'll have to
Yeah.
have you back. But
Yeah, and for anybody who wants to actually read the AEW comic, there is an easy way to do it. All you have to do is go into Twitter and find me online at Guardians_comic. And if you tweet at me, I will give you the AEW comic for free because again, I can't sell it. So I have a Dropbox link that you can get it at. So go to Twitter at Guardians_comic. Say, hey, give me the AEW comic, and even use hashtag AEW comic if you want, and I'll give it to you so you can read it, spread the word about it, and let's get this movie. Because there was a point where I had like 200 RTs on Twitter, like over 100 shares on Facebook about the comic, and I was getting traction. Like I was like, I have proof that the fans really wanted this. So it's all in AEW's hands now because I've made my pitch. I know Cody remembers me. I actually texted him recently during a Q&A of his. I'm like, hey, do you remember the comic, or can we get that? And he goes, yeah, it was really good. I just don't know where licensing and marketing is. I'm like, oh, I know where they are. They're not letting me make the comic. So
um,
so
well,
hire me, AEW.
so that's an interesting segue. Okay, you mentioned your Twitter. You have any other social media you'd like to plug? And I'll
Yeah, you
go ahead.
go ahead. No, it's just like I'm on Facebook. You can find me at author Todd Black, I believe it is. That's my author page, but you can also find my personal page if you want. It's not that hard. Just look for the guy with the fro. And I use Instagram. It's not as much though, but Twitter's my main one at Guardians_comic.
And definitely, I'll be including links. You are on Amazon for all your trade paperbacks, correct?
Yes, I will for most of them, outside of Secrets of Science and Thunder Rosa, obviously. But yeah, I'll drop you a link on that one too.
Yeah, and those will be in the description box below, so you can check out his work. 'Cause it's good work. It's good stuff. And if you once again, thank you to Todd. Thank you to the Todd for being for being on this week's podcast. Check him out on his social media pages, and if you enjoyed this, please give it a like, share, subscribe for more content, not just from the world of pro wrestling or comic books or all these things, but we have gaming, anime. This was a good encapsulation of all the stuff I do on my channel, so this was nice.
Happy to help.
And follow me on social media, facebook.com/athleticgeekA9, Twitter athletic_geekA9, Instagram athleticgeekA9, and if you'd like to help improve the channel financially, I am on Patreon, patreon.com/athleticgeekA9. Follow the Todd, buy the Todd's work, and AEW.
Buy the Thunder Rosa comic at thunderrosa.net.
Buy the Thunder Rosa comic, and AEW, hire the Todd.
Yes.
The Todd. The Todd.
The Todd. Yeah, there you go.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.